Hey honey, Wednesday Midgard. My name is Michelle from Thor Wants Another Letter, and this is a completely different video from what I was planning on filming. So I had like 2 weeks worth of footage built up, and there was no beginning, there was no end, and there was no middle. It was just me rambling, and I am very upset with myself for not having better tabs on things. So here's what I did. I decided to challenge myself in 2020 to read more queer literature and to kind of come out of my comfort zone of where I like to read just fantasies and contemporaries, just basically just come out of my shell and to integrate more of queer literature into my life. And so I decided to take inspiration from 3 different booktubers because I had never seen anyone else do this. I looked up a couple things like different tags and usernames and stuff like that, and I was like, you know what, no one else is doing it, so I might as well do it. And so I had a compilation of their 5 stars and or if they had like a queer recommendations tag or anything like that. And I did some meticulous research. I also asked some of my friends on Twitter, and I wrote those responses down as well because I do want to make a video about that too. And so in the month of January, I read 2 books. Well, 1 book, because I was planning on reading 2, but I only started the second one. The first book that I decided to read, I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver. And I read in February, I finished Juliet Takes a Breath by Gabby Rivera. And I had a very fun time reading both and also learning a lot about different things. And this inspiration came from just me as a bisexual indigenous person, and that I wanted to foray more into queer literature. So I'm going to give you the synopsis for 2 of them. I'm not going to be very in-depth. I'm going to try to be very vague because I do have notes on what I read. So the premise of I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver is a person named Ben comes out to their parents on New Year's Eve, and unfortunately their parents kick them out, leaving them homeless and jarred just from the experience of sharing such a precious part of themselves to their parents and then being rejected, which is terrible. It's absolutely terrible that this happens to people everywhere, that there are queer kids that aren't able to be themselves around their parents. I rated I Wish You All the Best a 4 out of 5 stars, and the trigger warnings are misgendering, homophobia, domestic violence, like whispers. The domestic violence part is the part that involves Ben's father. Wow, it was intense. Ben goes to school, things like that. I'm gonna start spoiling, so if you haven't read it, just click away from this, or thank you for being here. I'm gonna start spoiling y'all. Ben gets kicked out of their house, and they call their sister that they haven't talked to in like 10 plus years or something like that. And so she comes to get them. They get a whole thing going on at school because her husband is a teacher. Hannah, the sister, she starts using sib instead of bro. She uses they, them pronouns. And of course, everyone's going to mess up. Even I mess up sometimes, but I immediately correct it. And that's just part of progressing. So they hook them up with a therapist named Dr. Taylor. Dr. Taylor is the shit because she's just awesome. And Ben has a online friend that they communicate to. Their name is Miriam, another non-binary person, but Miriam is, I think, in their like 20s or 30s or something like that. I know that they're older. My reading experience was, I read this in like 2 days, and it was just really fast for me. I feel like I absorbed a lot of the things that Ben was going through and their gender identity and how they feel about certain things, like their body. Like there's a lot of talk about the body dysmorphia and how they just don't feel like things add up in the way that they look at their body and they look at their genitalia, and how everything just feels kind of weird. And that was a new perspective for me. I personally never thought about the dysmorphia. It's really sad to see Ben being misgendered and being called he and him and bro and dude and Mr., sir, stuff like that. It was so hard, and I can't imagine what it's like for people to go through that every day, being called the wrong gender. It's awful. And then they're also bisexual, but it sounds to me that it's more like pan, but they said definitely a lot easier than explaining that I identify as bisexual, and less gatekeeping involved too. There is a lot of gatekeeping in the LGBTQIA plus community when it comes to bisexuality, and it really sucks. They go on a picnic, and this is what I appreciated about the story, is that there were romantic parts as well as the more deeper topics and subjects. Ben has a very flawed relationship with their parents now because of how they were treated when they first came out. Hannah kind of comes out and tells Ben about some of the things that she went through when she was living there at the house, and why she left Ben behind, and Ben still feels some of that resentment toward her. And I love how that was explored, and I loved how that was brought to light. There was a point where the dad says this non-binary business, and I freaking flipped crap. I was making dinner when that happened, and I straight up almost dropped a pot of noodles because I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like I hate it when people try to understand, but they're not actually trying to understand. They're just trying to be passive about what you're going through and what you're experiencing. It was bullshit. I was also really, really happy when Ben finally got to meet Miriam, and they finally got to kind of hang out and chill together. And I loved the love interest. The love interest name is Nathan, and he goes by he, and I love how supportive, this one's freaking me out right now. I love how supportive that he was towards Ben. And so I mostly just wanted to talk about my experience as a whole and what I liked, but I didn't really have that many dislikes. What really bothered me was that I never really got a full sense of who Ben was, and I know Ben was probably figuring that out for themselves, but I really feel like I could have used a lot more context when it came to who Ben was, because we're just experiencing the here and now versus like memories and things like that. That's probably why I didn't rate it a 5 stars, was just because so much of the book is Ben trying to figure things out for themselves and connecting with Nathan, and Nathan becoming the slow burn between Nathan and Ben. It just felt really kind of confusing to me, and I wasn't sure what the hell was going on, if like Nathan was just straight and leading Ben on, or what the fuck was happening. But I wouldn't say that that was a bad thing, because it shows how, accurate it is that Ben doesn't know what is going on because they don't know what's going on themselves. But that was my experience. The whole message that I got from the book was that sometimes you don't figure yourself out right away, and that's okay. And also that your family can be terrible to you when you first come out, but they can also, there's parts of your family that will love and support you no matter what, and that it's important to find those people that will support you and that will love you no matter what happens and no matter what you do. So that was I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver. The 2 of the books were the most common that I picked up, and the next book that I picked up was Juliet Takes a Breath by Gabby Rivera, and this one I actually requested from my library. Juliet Takes a Breath is about a lesbian from the Bronx that gets a internship with a feminist icon in the LGBTQ/feminism world. And so she goes over to Portland, Oregon, where the feminist icon lives, for their internship. And she learns a lot about feminism, where your idea of feminism comes from, what it is like to be a queer POC, being a queer POC, trying to shout against the blinding shield of whiteness, and also the way that white privilege can affect people, and how just because you're friends with somebody who's white and they exhibit those kind of things, that does not mean that you can't call them out on it, because they should be called out. It also reinforces that queer POC, and also POC in general, shouldn't have to fucking educate people constantly on the issues that they face and why certain parts of white privilege are harmful, or why they should advocate more for their fellow person, or certain things like that. But mostly it was about Juliet discovering and asking questions, and I loved that. I love that Juliet asked questions, and how she wasn't afraid to be curious about things. And I feel like, yes, we shouldn't have to constantly educate other people, but at the same time, I feel as if sometimes hearing it from someone that you trust and someone that you love is a lot easier than having it being shouted at you, or from somebody being mean to you about it. And so I wrote down so many notes. I liked the love interest that they had, and that she was super cute. And I don't like the fact that it wasn't mentioned until like almost the end that the love interest was Korean. Like, that's what I don't like about some things, is that we don't get that right away, and not until they bring it up. Also, I love how the feminine icons that Juliet is around constantly is set up, like her mother, her cousin Ava, her Titi Wepa. Titi Wepa was a freaking shit. Titi Wepa is, I think, a retired cop or something like that, and she just her personality, she reminds me of so many characters that I've seen on screen and read in books, just combined, and it was amazing. And I wish that we would have gotten more chapters with her, because it was so funny. Because in the beginning, they're like talking about how Juliet came out right before she left Portland, and Titi Wepa and her brother Lil Melvin are in the car, and they're dropping her off at the airport, and something about how falcons can be gay, and then she's all like nice and cute and sentimental, and then the next thing you know, she's like, now get the fuck out of my car. And I love that, because it's like, we all have a relative that's like that. That's like so strong and powerful, and then 2 seconds later they're like. Part that was really sad was that unfortunately Juliet's mom can't come to the terms that her daughter is gay right at that moment, and so she loves her from afar, but also says like, this is going to be a phase. And I know it's 2003 and everything, but like, come on, mom, just why you gotta be like that? And then Juliet's girlfriend Lainey has been like hiding her and not wanting to be out, and there's just a whole bunch of stuff that goes on with that. And one thing about Juliet that I really loved and that I related so much to was that Juliet has a soft heart. And when something hurts Juliet, she feels it with her whole chest. She feels it with her whole emotion. And I related to that so much. Maxine is Harlow Brisbane, the feminist icon. Maxine is Harlow's partner. And so we see a lot about Maxine and queer POC, and Maxine in all of her adorable blackness, in her powerful, regal position. She is the one that tells Harlow, like, hey, that's fucked up what you're saying. Why are you saying that like that? You don't have to give us anything. We're taking that space. Just because you're white, you don't give us this. This is our space. you're not giving us anything. And I just love how that is explained. Like certain parts of feminism and things that you might be able to find, that you might find confusing, it's explained in the book. And I love that. I also like how Maxine was like, if you want to know more, here's some cool books that you should read. Or no, that was her cousin Ava that said that, hey, you should read this person instead of like all these white people. And I love how that was also like a spank at, hey, don't just read white books, read diverse books too. I love how Juliet says to herself that she is messy, emotional, book nerd weirdo, chubby brown human, a jumble of awkward bits and glory, now full of ancestors and stories. And I loved that so much. Hopefully you can make sense of some of these ranty, weird things. I personally really loved both books. I rated Juliet Takes A Breath a 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it so freaking much. And I did enjoy I Wish You All the Best, but it wasn't my favorite. But like I said, it wasn't terrible, it wasn't bad. I just did not connect to it the same. I just connected more to Juliet Takes a Breath rather than I did I Wish You All the Best. I think the thing that I took away from I Wish You All the Best was the whole, like, it's okay that you are not 100% sure of yourself when you're 18. And I definitely related to that because I didn't come out until I was like 22, I think. Anyway, so I hope you made sense of all this weird rantiness. I hope they're having an amazing day. I really hope, let me know if there are any recommendations that you have for queer literature that you think that I should check out for a future video. The next episode of Rainbow Edition will probably come out sometime in March or end of March. I still have to get all the books. If there are any recommendations that you would want me to read, I would definitely put that down in the comments. I am 1000% open to receiving more suggestions for this series in terms of books. And I hope that you like this video. This is like the first time I'm reading a book and giving it more of in-depth thought and a more in-depth look. Yeah, let me know what you thought of this video. I'm sorry if it's really weird and choppy. I feel really bad that my content I didn't keep better track of it than I should have. Anyway, I hope you're all having an amazing day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.